Hey everyone, your pal Surly the Elf here with another history lesson. Today I'm talking about the Reconstruction. Okay, what's the Reconstruction? You might be wondering. Well, it was a period of time, roughly about 1865 to about 1877, following the conclusion of the first, but let's be realistic, not the last American Civil War. Okay, and the guys in charge of the North now they're trying to decide what to do with the South. The Confederacy who friggin' started a civil war and tried to secede. You know, real brilliant idea. Letting those racist, ill-tempered, maladjusted, hyper-violent, secessionist douche nozzles to rejoin the very country that they just tried to destroy. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, sure, you just tried to demolish our house, but you're very special. We still love you. Here's the spare house key back. Dumb. And now Reconstruction has some decent goals, sure. Better education, more opportunities for the disenfranchised, equitable land and resource allocation. A lot of things that share a lot of similarities with like modern progressive platforms, yeah? Which I guess kind of says a lot about the lack of progress that we've made, given that we're still fighting the same fights, we're still battling the same battles, we're still having the same conversations over and over again. So, like, why are we still fighting the same fight time and time again? Like, why is that? Well, two things, really. One, Reconstruction didn't go far enough to correct all the power imbalances that existed there, okay? And two, Andrew Johnson, the guy who took over after Lincoln, was assassinated, he was a useless, spineless, corrupt piece of garbage when it came to holding those secessional SOBs accountable. Like, the bastard even pardoned Confederate leaders and forced the Union government to return land to them. They engaged in civil war against the United States and were rewarded for it with a pardon and compensation by a racist, corrupt, wannabe president. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And while the North was trying to make Reconstruction work in the South, mostly non-elite, white supremacist a-hole paramilitary groups like the Redeemers, White League, and the Red Shirts started terrorizing black and progressive leaders and communities, disrupting voting, undermining social progress. These a-holes even attacked police officers. Lawless gangs acting with impunity, running roughshod over marginalized communities and neighborhoods and all. That sounds real familiar. And then within a few years, any gains from any Reconstruction era legislation were wiped away, totally erased, reverted by the same very racist secessionist SOBs that openly fought the United States just to keep owning slaves. And then the useless, feckless president didn't do a thing to stop any of the egregiously discriminatory black codes from being implemented across former Confederate states, even after being informed about them by his staff. Okay? And black codes, by the way, they're essentially the historical predecessor to Jim Crow, okay? That's the historical context here. That's where this fits in to the larger macro historical picture. Black codes were just an early iteration of Jim Crow. And to have a leader at the top who doesn't care sounds real familiar. And real talk, a leader who sits on his ass while people are getting abused or victimized or murdered, that ain't a leader at all. And, with such useless lumps of flesh at the helm, a morally rudderless, broken country, and a social structure conditioned for doomed complacency, I can't imagine why Reconstruction didn't work out. And I certainly can't imagine why we're still dealing with the same kinds of issues from basically the same kinds of people almost 200 years later. I mean, it isn't like I could draw a thematic line from the Civil War, Reconstruction, to modern day, and connecting through it every single major historical instance where America as a collective society was either unwilling or unable to properly stand up against, deal with, and or defeat the absolute worst, most regularly occurring and reoccurring possum itself. This is why it's important to be a student of history, so you can understand where humanity came from, and therefore better understand where it is and where it's going. You gotta learn from the past, so your generation doesn't have to live through a repeat of the previous cycle. Read, think, teach. This is your pal, Surly the Elf. Another educational history lesson here. Today we're talking about Reconstruction.